Good afternoon. We are live from New York City, and welcome to the inaugural episode of Mind the Energy Gap, where we explore the legal, business, and policy considerations of the global energy transition. I'm SJ Beaumont, your host. I am a dual licensed attorney in the United Kingdom and also here in New York. I specialize in M&A transactions covering the energy sector and also technologies that enhance our path to decarbonisation. So I'm thrilled to welcome Jose Almanzar, my friend and fellow attorney. He is a senior counsel at Holland & Knight in New York. Jose brings a rare combination of deep environmental regulatory expertise and hands-on experience as a former scientist. Given how many of today's energy transition deals require bridging traditional environmental regulatory risks with novel technology financing and corporate structures, I couldn't imagine a better first guest to kick off this conversation about the legal and regulatory underpinnings that increasingly shape sustainable energy, decarbonisation, and ESG-driven M&A. So welcome, Jose. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. And for everyone listening, I only found out a few minutes ago that I was breaking ground with SJ on this in the inaugural episode. So I'm really honored to be here with you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. I wanted everyone to have an amazing guest for the first episode. Essentially, the first part of this is what I like to call what powers us, i.e. the world. So I would really like to do a little bit of a deep dive into your work as an environmental attorney. Perhaps because I'm an M&A lawyer, we could go through sort of a bit of a traditional kind of transaction life cycle, the things you work on, how these are changing with regulatory changes, public opinion, other exogenous forces.
Sure.
So maybe we start with before the deal has been cast, sort of the due diligence side, scoping the deal. So obviously I work in infrastructure at the moment, and there's been a huge rise in clean tech, infrastructure deals, data center, battery storage, CCUS equipment, other kind of manufacturing parts for the energy transition, especially on brownfield sites. So I'm intrigued. I know you kind of look at a lot of these issues with your clients. When citing these facilities, what risks do you think are consistently underestimated?
The most consistently underestimated risk are probably ecological ones. And those can compound when you are looking at contaminated sites like brownfields or sites that are near critical habitats or deal with endangered species or like historical landmarks, historically things such as cemeteries or burial lands or tribal lands.
Yeah.
So a lot of these things that in the past maybe we've been quick to either move past or approve are now getting increased scrutiny from regulators and local community activists. Those obviously the project finance, those first and foremost, the numbers have to make sense. But from the environmental side, a lot of those ecological risks can cause significant delays and can result in projects and not becoming financially feasible. So we like to advise our clients from the very beginning. First, we need to have a great team of technical specialists. Lawyers are good at a lot of things, and we can pretend very well to do a lot of great technical things, but we are not experts. At least we shouldn't be considered technical experts. So we tend to, from the very beginning of projects, when we were dealing with, speaking with our deal teams, saying, well, who's the consultant or what company is going to be the technical consultant on this, and you want to make sure that you have somebody, at least a team on the other side, that has some level of experience with the type of infrastructure that's being built and in the locality where the project is being sited. These things can be very, very important. So first and foremost, that's what we usually lead our clients. Like, who's the technical lead on this? And if they need recommendations, then we'll certainly make that, but we take the lead from the client usually.
Yeah, I can imagine that takes quite a lot of time. As you said, it can sort of add delays in. We are developing offshore wind projects at the moment. So I really sort of understand that and what you said about sort of community impact. And I know sort of environmental justice regulation has been quite a big theme in recent years. So, you know, how do you see the role of attorneys evolving with this? Because obviously, as you said, like, we're not technical experts, but as this process becomes more and more complex and the regulatory framework thickens, how do you see the role of attorneys being sort of super critical going forward?
So, in this respect, I think attorneys should take the lead of the community members and the lead of community activists and the lead of the clients, and find a way to kind of bridge the communication gap. And obviously, as attorneys, my primary role is representing my clients' interests. But I also know that my clients' interests are getting this project developed in a manner that coincides with kind of their philosophy and also a philosophy of good stewardship, looking into the future. It does my client no good if we can get a project cited and developed on year 1, but by year 10, it's becoming a net negative in terms of either the risks or the financial losses or community opposition, because the community is still going to be there.
Yeah, it's super important to get them on board.
And so we like to advise our clients that early communication with the community and community leaders, not just elected officials, clergy, nonprofits, educational institutions that might be impacted by a project, not just in the siting of let's call it a renewable energy project, for example, but the pathway of the transmission lines. What habitats are going to be impacted? Is that transmission line going to be above ground, underground? Are we going to be transversing water bodies? And it's very easy to just say, well, let's just run a line and everything will be great, and we're only going to knock down a few trees. Well, I try really hard to bring a holistic view into those discussions. Now, ultimately, it's the client's decision as to how they want to proceed, but I really try to bring this view that, hey, the project finance has to make sense, and the technical components have to make sense.
Of course.
But there's kind of ecological and human considerations that have to make sense as well.
Yeah.
It's a difficult fine line and thin
needle. I can imagine.
Thin needle to thread, but I think it can be done with some open and honest communications.
Yeah. And obviously, like, your client's very invested in these projects and the ecological considerations and whatnot. I mean, we saw the sort of big ESG hype sort of 2-3 years ago, where larger financial institutional investors, kind of the world at large was suddenly super involved in environmental considerations and social things and whatnot. Do you think that focus has stayed in the environmental due diligence phase? I mean, for example, things like PFAS are such a big topic now. And, you know, obviously, or do you think the conversation has changed? Because obviously, you know, ESG is not really like a cool word anymore. But, you know, how do you think that has changed and the focus on that?
So environmental diligence is still a key component of any project, especially when you're dealing with infrastructure that is at scale. So just because the political discourse or perhaps financial systems are scaling down on things like ESG, perhaps maybe because some of the metrics are changing and there's some confusion in the market, you still have to look at things from a risk-based perspective, and that's one thing that attorneys do really well.
Allocating risk
and freaking their clients out.
Absolutely.
So, and then bringing it back. And so part of my job and my colleagues at Holland & Knight, we have a great environmental team that's national and international, is we take a pragmatic outlook at projects and with practical business-oriented outcomes. And so environmental diligence is one component of a project, as you know. things like procurement has to make sense. Labor and employment issues have to make sense. Obviously, the corporate deal structure has to make sense. So for M&A deals, environmental is one component.
Yeah, of course.
And I try, as much as in my head, it's the most important one.
Yeah.
And I'm biased. I also understand that it's just it's a data point for my client.
Yeah.
So we advise the client on where the pressure points are and where they should prioritize attention, where things might be red, green, or yellow in terms of what a forward-looking risk might look like. Things like you mentioned PFAS, for example. It's the boogeyman right now in
the new asbestos.
It's the new asbestos, the new and in many ways it should be given that kind of attention because the liability can be significant.
Yeah.
But that's if you are the type of defendant or the type of potential party that could be held responsible in this moment.
Yeah.
Right now, purveyors of water, water districts, chemical manufacturers, and landfills are probably the largest potential responsible parties for PFAS-related issues. That's not to say that in 10 years it won't be more, but right now, like if you are a tech company and all you do is maintain data centers, PFAS is not really a big risk for you. PFAS may be a risk if you're developing on land that was previously contaminated from prior industrial or chemical activities. And then
or it can be deep in the supply chain in terms of when you're looking at sort of more manufacturing stuff. But yeah, I see your point. Just in terms of the land, it's kind of looking back historically at that use.
And you can use different tools to allocate that risk and shield yourself. You know, I like to take a three-prong approach. First is what is our statutory protections that we can get. So in the United States, we've got the Federal Superfund Law, CERCLA, which in 2020 baked in, as a result of some congressional amendments to the law, baked in some protections for entities and persons that are acquiring contaminated property. We wanted to encourage the redevelopment and use of contaminated property. So we said, if you do certain things prior to acquiring this property or prior to leasing this property, we'll give you some protection, even though there is known or even unknown contamination.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I like to, and many states have similar Superfund type laws that give you similar types of protection. So first is statutory. Then I like to look at, well, and depending on which side of the transaction we're on, where can we shift some liability to our seller or to our purchaser, depending on which side has more leverage. And that's a business decision that my clients have to make, but they make it with the guidance of their corporate counsel and environmental counsel. And the third is insurance, just good old environmental insurance. PFAS, there's a lot of exclusions for PFAS right now, a lot of exclusions for known contamination. But my sense has been that, I don't know, the market's still very, very aggressive for underwriting premise liability policies, pollution, your standard pollution policies for land itself. You'll find an underwriter that is willing to, if you pay a high enough premium, they'll give you the coverage you need. So taking that three-prong approach, you can almost work with any type of known environmental liability that's there. So that's a framework that I like to work with.
And picking up on that second prong, which is your sort of contractual protections, like I understand, just looking at kind of moving forward after the transactions close, like sort of post-closing covenants and whatnot. Historically, they were focused on remediation, and ensuring compliance with existing orders. But obviously, as you alluded to earlier, these things are more forward-looking now. So where do you draw the line between legitimate operational protections for, say you're acting for the buyer, versus covenants that effectively impose like a new regulatory burden?
So for something like that, you really have to look at what information do we know based on the diligence that we have. And if you have an entity that has this systemic non-compliance, or we have a regulatory scheme that we know is at the cusp of being posing a significant impact, it may be that covenants alone may not even address the issue. We may need to put some money aside in escrow.
Okay.
And a tool that maybe you've seen used frequently in your deals is representations and warranties insurance.
Yep.
I keep coming back to insurance. I promise I'm not a broker, and I have no affiliation or alliance.
This is not a paid partnership.
This is not a paid partnership either. But it's such a fantastic tool. I mean, reps and warranties insurance, especially for M&A deals, where you have selling entities and targets that have dozens of facilities. It's almost impossible to diligence every nook and cranny. You do the best that you can as a purchaser. Maybe there's a buy and close period that's sometimes a few months, sometimes a few years. There you may need some strong covenants. But if you have a sign and close kind of situation, future covenants, if I were the selling entity, I would say I want out. I want to sell. I want to cash our funds and get out. I don't want. I want some closure on this. The best tool that we had decades ago was setting up escrow for potential indemnity claims. That has now evolved to really involve representations and warranties insurance. So it's a fantastic tool. You still have to diligence, and the underwriters still demand some level of homework with respect to environmental issues, but they're in the business of taking on risk.
Of course.
So they're willing to. I've worked on plenty of deals, and our firm has a active reps and warranties insurance practice where we represent some of the largest underwriters and insurance companies. And then we also just have traditional M&A deals where we're on the other side, where we are then procuring reps and warranties insurance. And there's still some homework that needs to be done, but they're willing to take on some risk. And everything boils down to what's the size of the deal and what's considered material. And that's a function of, and I won't bore the guests, but there's a function that's a percentage of what the entire enterprise value is. So for a $50 million deal, materiality might be $30,000. And obviously there's different factors that go into that. So we look at our diligence, and if we see that, well, this small solar farm in upstate New York was built on potentially contaminated land, but we don't really know if there is contamination. The solar farm has already been developed. There's no claims. The insurance company is willing to take on some of that risk because they're getting a sizable premium, and it's unlikely there's going to be a claim that's going to rise to that level of materiality. So it's a really good tool for infrastructure projects where there may be contamination issues, just these unknown issues.
Speaking of unknown issues, obviously there's been quite a lot of regulatory change. Like in my industry, obviously we've had a huge shift with the One Big Beautiful Bill Act and various things like that. But obviously, you have very different environmental laws and things like that. How do you mitigate that risk for future regulatory change? Like, what's the strategy there?
The best thing we can do, which I hate to say this, is
insurance.
It's fortune tell. You're fortune telling. I mean, we have, and again, I'm gonna plug Holland & Knight because we're one of the few law firms that has a really active government and public policy group. And the group that I work under, it's under the government section. We have 100 and some odd lobbyists and government policy specialists, and we rely on them to essentially help us craft policy memos to our client when things are in the pipeline, either regulations or amendments to laws. At that point, the best thing you can do is give the client kind of a most reasonable worst case scenario. But even then, I promise you, we're putting footnotes and endnotes in that memo that says things are subject to change because these laws are dynamic. So it's hard to mitigate. It's difficult to mitigate what those risks look like, particularly in evolving tech, evolving issues like environmental justice.
Yeah.
How do you put a dollar value on what an environmental justice claim is going to look like? How do you put a dollar value on New York has a green amendment that gives the citizens now a constitutional right to clean air, water, and land. How do you put a dollar value on what a potential claim might look like if you're a private party?
Yeah.
Mind you, the constitutional amendment is intended to for claimants to sue the government because it's a constitution, but private parties can get kind of sucked into that. It's very difficult to forecast that. New Jersey has, along with New York, but New Jersey has one of the most robust environmental justice laws in the country. How can you put a dollar value on project permitting delays? Something that maybe in the past took 6 months now may take 18 months.
Yeah.
And you may end up
prices go up, and everything affects like the entire financing of the deal. And
so any lawyer that tells you anything with certainty is probably not a lawyer.
Yeah.
It's probably a lawyer that needs to be humbled a little bit.
Possibly. Well, that was very, very interesting. I'm going to kind of round off this section by asking about your predictions, your fortune telling for the future.
Oh, right. Okay.
Okay. So, first of all, putting on both hats as an attorney and a former scientist, what do you think are the biggest challenges or delaying items in decarbonizing our economy and achieving a more sustainable environment?
This is going to be an unpopular opinion, and I'm going to say this with a disclaimer that these are my opinions, my own, not of my law firm or my group. But right now, identity politics has taken over the discourse over climate change and decarbonization and transitioning away from fossil fuels. Yeah. Period. Yeah. That's not me saying anything controversial. But over the last few decades, and certainly in the last 10 years, climate discussions have now taken over and become identity discussions. Okay. It's unfortunate.
It is.
Because these are things that are based in science and that are based in data and facts. And we know three things. We know that the Earth is changing in terms of climate. Yeah. We know that humans are the cause. Yeah. And we know that if we don't do something at scale and quickly,
it's going to get worse.
It's going to get worse.
Yeah.
These are irrefutable truths that have now become muddled. And so, unfortunately, I think that's the biggest thing that's going to kind of get in our way of the progress that I feel and many in the science community and the legal community, regardless of which side of the spectrum you're on, believe. And so there's a lot of misinformation that's put out there. And so I think that's it's kind of getting out of our own way.
Yeah.
I know that.
Do you think we can? Do you think we can get out of our own way? Like, do you think the energy transition to net zero can actually happen? And if so, like, how?
I have 3 children, that's Shay, and they're young children, a 12-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 5-year-old. And right before we started recording, I mentioned to you that one of my sisters just had her second child. I think a lot about the future of this planet and what this planet will look like for them when they're in our, kind of age. And what my grandchildren might experience, or great-great-grandchildren, who I'll never meet, but from the past I can love them still the same. Yeah. And it's easy for anyone to see the news and the data and become completely despair-driven,
Yeah.
hopeless,
Mm-hmm.
and go into a dark place and throw their hands up and say, well, F it, we had a good run, and I did my part. I'm just going to now retire and hit the beach and watch the world burn. And I'll be completely just transparent with you. I go into those places a few times a year. I do. It's impossible not to when you're plugged in to what's going on.
Yeah.
But then something, something, I'm just going to call it magical, happens every few times a year. I'm out with one of my kids. We're walking and I don't know, we see something interesting in nature. Or they ask me a really interesting question about why things are the way they are. And I answer and they resonate and they get it.
Yeah.
And they say things like, well, that's not fair.
Yeah.
Well, why aren't we doing anything faster?
That's beautiful.
Well, how can we help?
Yeah.
And it does happen, and it sounds cliche. That's the kind of stuff that makes me believe that there is a path forward.
Yeah.
There's a beautiful book written by Catherine Hayhoe. She's the chief climate scientist for the Nature Conservancy.
Okay.
The global organization, the Nature Conservancy. The book is called Saving Us.
Okay.
And she posits in that book that we are all connected by nature, and that it doesn't matter whether you're agnostic, religious, Christian, Jewish, Republican, Democrat. Most people care about the planet and care about the future generations. And there's a way to communicate with people.
Yeah.
And there's a way to do it with empathy and compassion and grace in a way that you're not attacking people's identities.
Yeah.
And it's finding that middle ground.
Yeah, I love that.
And so for anyone listening, I would encourage you to at least look up that book, and if not, read it, because she lays out a playbook on how to effectively communicate climate to people that complete off the fringy climate deniers. I don't think you're ever going to reach those people.
Yeah.
But she articulates that that's only really 7% of people out there.
Yeah.
The other 93% of people, there's a spectrum.
Of course. Yeah, yeah.
And those are the ones that we really should be focusing on.
Yeah.
So that's a long-winded way of saying, SJ, that I do think we can get out of our own way. It may just take us a little longer than than we want to.
Cautious optimism.
I have to believe.
Yeah,
I have to. Otherwise, then what are we doing here?
Exactly.
Go. I can't crawl into a hole. And I mean, I don't play video games anymore, but I guess, I don't know. I'd probably just end up in the woods and just isolated from society.
Yeah.
I don't operate from that space.
You're hopeful though, and that is a great transition into our second part of the episode, which I like to call "What Powers You." And obviously, you've talked about that. I can tell. Obviously, you're very passionate about your work and the environment, and I know obviously you love like having great conversations with people. And obviously, I'd love to hear a bit more about some of your work, like with the Nature Conservancy you mentioned. You are just such a fascinating character to know, beyond being a very talented attorney. I remember at the New York State Bar Association meeting when we met, everyone was like, you have to meet Jose, you have to meet Jose. I was like, where's Jose? And when I met you, I got it, because you are just the warmest energy, and you light up a room. So what powers and drives you?
Well, thank you. Well, I'm glad my my $200 that I gave to those people that night paid off. No, I appreciate the kind words. So some people that know me personally know this about me, but when I was in high school in New York City, first of all, I immigrated here. I'm not sure if you know that. I was born in the Caribbean, in the Dominican Republic. moved to New York City as a 9-year-old.
Okay.
Went to elementary through high school here in New York City. And around 15 years old, I did a summer internship with the Nature Conservancy. They have a New York chapter where for the first time in my life, I was able to experience nature in a way that I had never experienced it before. We were doing work for the Nature Conservancy in western New York, a little north of Syracuse, west of Syracuse, working on their nature preserves. They owned thousands of acres of land throughout all of New York State, and we were doing things like rehabilitating nature trails, blazing nature trails, invasive species mitigation, like all this really hands-on cool work as a 15, 16-year-old.
Yeah.
And I had a kind of a moment in nature that sounds very hokey, but after a morning of working from about 7 a.m. to noon, we took a break, and I kind of just laid down in the woods. And I kind of came to maybe like 20 minutes into this little nap. I was half awake, half sleeping. But then I remember just having this, I had never experienced this type of, I was kind of like vibrating. I could kind of feel in a very odd way, like a different kind of connection to the earth in a very, very literal sense. I came to kind of in this, after this like 3-minute trance, and it sounds made up, but I kind of said to myself, well, I don't know what that was, but that was awesome. And I am going to spend the rest of my waking life as at least as a professional working in service of whatever that was.
I love that.
That was 15.
So only a couple of years ago.
Yeah. I then went on to college and declared environmental studies as my major. And as you mentioned, I worked as a scientist before pivoting to law. But what powers me is the outdoors in a very, very literal sense. I don't get to spend as much time outdoors as I'd like to. I did trade my work boots for my work shoes, going from field science to the practice of law. I live in the suburbs. I commute to New York City for work. So nature is not as much a part of my life as I want it to be. With that said, whenever I do get little bits of nature, it just always takes me back to being that 15-year-old kid in the woods.
That's great.
So that powers me first and foremost, and I try to share that directly with my family as often as we can. But also, I try to find little pockets throughout the year where I could just be in nature.
Yeah, and you're obviously incredibly busy at work, a major law firm, absolutely killing it, but you also find the time to do charity work and volunteer stuff on the side as well. Tell the listeners a little bit more about that. And also, where on earth do you find the time? Between having 3 kids and loving nature and like being a big law attorney and this too. You're an inspiration.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, I do, I've made peace with the fact that I won't be able to do everything the way that I want it to do. But if I can do things in spurts or find little pockets, and that's okay. And it took a while for me to get there. So to answer your last question, like how do I do it all? I've attorneys, as you being one, and you know that we have this type of, most of us have this type of personality if things have to be just the right way. And if they're not, then we're going to beat ourselves up. And not necessarily perfectionism, but that's one trait. But this hyper diligence and hyper vigilance to like doing things right all the time. And I've gotten really good at prioritizing what needs to be done right in that moment at that time. So when I'm being an attorney representing my corporate clients, then I'm fully present and giving them 100%. What that means is that for those few hours when I'm working on that assignment, or for if it's a full day or multi-day project, I may have to neglect other things. I do prioritize my family. So usually once a night, unless I'm traveling for work, I will shut down and then shift into dad mode.
Yeah.
And that could be a few hours, 5 p.m. to 8 p.m., 4 to 7, 4 to 8. And I try to be fully present there. So that then comes at the neglect of, my work at sometimes because I'm being present.
That's okay.
And I've
give yourself some grace.
I've made peace with it, but that usually means that then at 8:30, after I've breathed in dinner, the laptop comes back on.
Yeah.
So I've kind of made peace, and that's how I just do all these things and keep busy. In terms of my volunteer work, a lot of my work is corporate support.
Okay.
Which I actually really love, being able to apply environmental law to support these businesses, both large and not so large, navigating complex issues. I'm like a kid at a candy store when it comes to the work that I do. I absolutely love it. But if I can be completely candid and transparent, sometimes that work is it's meaningful in different ways, but it's not in the same way that 15-year-old kid was envisioning.
Yeah.
So I'm able to go all in on my legal work, supporting my clients, drafting up M&A agreements, drafting memos, revising reports, working with engineers. But a few years ago, I decided, hey, you know what? All right, maybe I won't, in this moment, in this chapter in my life, I'm not necessarily working for a big green nonprofit or the government or even a company that's maybe advancing clean technology. I'm not working in-house for them, although we do have certain clients. I said, how can I give back to this greater cause in different ways? And I've been fortunate enough to just be put into the right settings where I can then be invited into some of these, discussions. So one of them is I'm on the board of the Nature Conservancy in their New York chapter. We have
the same organization where you had your
same organization that when I was 15 years old, complete full circle moment. I completely forgot about the organization for a long time. And I met the executive director at a function where we were both speaking on environmental justice issues. He introduced himself to the group as the executive director of the Nature Conservancy in New York. His name is Bill Oldfelder, beautiful human, over 30 years with this organization globally and now in New York for a while. And I went up to him and I thanked him. And he was like, dude, what do you thanking me for?
Yeah.
I don't know you. And I
You've
said,
shaped my life.
And I said, your organization was so foundational for who I am now. And we developed a genuine friendship. Yeah. Went out to coffee a few times, and he invited me to join the board shortly thereafter.
Amazing. Congratulations.
And that allows me to see some of the behind-the-scenes work that the organization is doing, support them financially whenever I can and in ways that I can, but also be an ambassador for them. And in the moments that I have intimate discussions with friends, colleagues, I can name drop and say, hey, do you know this organization is doing some incredible things throughout New York, and here's some of the examples. And if you want to learn more, definitely check out their website. You should donate to them because your money is actually really going, they're doing some great work. That's one organization. And then another one recently is, so you may not know this, but New York State has is home to the largest public park in the entire country.
Okay.
The Adirondack Park.
Oh yeah.
Over 6 million acres.
Up there.
It's over, and it ranges all the way from Lake George, which is around the southern tip, all the way up to like almost Canada.
Yeah.
6 million acres. Talking about how much land, and it encompasses a lot of towns, counties, hamlets. The park is unique because 25% of the park is privately owned by individuals who own homes, first homes, second homes. What that means is that you can't just alter the land as you see fit.
Yeah.
You need permission from the Adirondack Park Agency and from a board that, under the New York Constitution, is made up of 11 individuals. And I'm proud to say that I'm the first Latino that has ever been appointed by the governor and confirmed by the New York Senate to sit on that board. And that's as of this.
That's incredible. Well done.
That's as of this year.
Yeah.
And again, it was just I didn't seek it out. I was put in touch with somebody. I met him at a gala. He is a lobbying and a policy specialist for an organization that oversees what the Adirondack Park Agency is doing. And over the years, we developed a friendship. And he said, "Hey, we've been thinking about a board seat that's opening up. And my executive director and I want to put your name in front of the governor."
Yeah.
I was like, "Dude, I don't have time to lobby on behalf of myself, and I don't know what you're talking about." And he said, No, we'll do all that work. You just need to, be responsive when we ask you to kind of submit resumes and maybe jump on the phone with them. It took about 3 years, and earlier this year I was appointed by Governor Hochul.
Amazing.
And confirmed by the Senate. And in that capacity, I bring my legal expertise, my scientific background, my identity as a somebody from New York, downstate New York, man of color, Dominican, an immigrant. I bring all of that to this room that's been historically, didn't have somebody like me. There's one black woman, first black woman, Benita, who was appointed a few years ago, and she was the first person of color, first African American to sit on that board, and I'm the first Latino. So I'm very proud and honored to be at that table. So I find these little opportunities to kind of fulfill my spirit in those ways.
Yeah. Well, I'm very proud and honoured to have you here today to have this conversation. It's been fantastic.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, and I'll put a link to your name and whatnot in the show notes so people can get in touch.
Yeah, they can find me on LinkedIn, Jose Almanzar. And Essie, I just want to say what you're doing here. I think this is needed. I think you're right. The discourse that's out there on energy transition and decarbonization is sometimes hyper-technical, and you can lose people in the weeds. Yeah. So I think what you're doing here, and I'm honored to be your inaugural guest, and I'm really just, I'll be rooting for you and blasting you in every platform that I can.
Thank you so much. And thank you, listeners, as well. This has been the first episode of Mind the Energy Gap, live from New York City. I've been S.J. Beaumont. He's been Jose Almanzar. And yes, look forward to seeing you next episode. Cheers.